My name is Blake Rogers. Today we'll be talking about the importance of organizational culture. Now for me, organizational culture involves your actions, attitudes, values, and communicative patterns. But first, we need to answer, what is an organization? An organization is a group of people that are striving for a shared goal. Their actions and attitudes, for me, those kind of tie into each other. Your actions and attitudes, they do speak louder than words. Your actions, your attitudes, they set that bar. They set the culture. You want to have positive actions. You want to have positive attitudes and a positive mindset. Your values. Values, for me, values means what you deem to be important. And that's what separates these companies from each other. They have their own values. They have what they deem to be important, and they stick to it. Communicative patterns, for me, the world is a form of communication. So, some of these organizations, they can be global, they can be local, in the country. So, you can have a language barrier, you may not. But finding a way that works for you to communicate in these communicative patterns is important to forming a positive organizational culture. Why is it important to organizational effectiveness? Now, going over here, this chart, this lists some of the things that I list, and it lists some of the things that I don't list. Attracts high caliber candidates, which is something that we'll get into here in a little bit. Builds resilience, increases retention, enhances productivity, boosts employee engagement, and improves brand identity. Now, for me, I was reading an article, I was researching a little bit. I came across this one on torbenrick.eu, and for me, this quote right here is probably the most important thing that I read. It takes a long time to mimic or copy a culture. And this quote that I pulled from this article, anyone can copy a strategy, but nobody can copy a culture. Now, for me, it's, you build a culture. You want to separate yourself. Anybody can copy a strategy, but nobody can copy a culture, because that culture is what you and your employees have. Enhances team chemistry, engages employee minds, and boosts your brand identity. And that goes from your employees all the way to your leaders. If you have a good culture, it's going to enhance your team chemistry. Everybody wants to be there. Engages employee minds. Everybody wants to be productive. Everybody wants to get creative. Your brand identity, it works from your employees. If your employees are being creative, they're in that good culture, they're gonna boost your brand identity. And that it works from the top to the bottom, because if your employees are within a good culture, they're boosting that brand identity, and then your higher ups are gonna, it's one big culture. Factors that affect it. We'll get into this chart because this is something very important that that has some stats to it that I want to point out. Leadership, communication. Leadership, it goes from your top to the bottom, and it also ties into the communication, because you want your leaders, your managers, even your higher ups, that you want them to be able to communicate. It starts with them. Commitment to employees, that can be, life gets in the way sometimes. We all know that. It can be from that to your health benefits. Your commitment to your employees. If you as an employee realize that a company is committed to you, that builds a culture. You know that they love you, that they want you to succeed, that they care about you. That builds a culture. Career growth and potential. For me, that is one of the most important questions that I ask in a hiring process. Where do you see this job going in 5, 10 years? That growth, that potential. With a good culture, they can grow. They want to grow. They want to succeed. That potential is higher. But the green bars on this, corporate culture's impact on performance. The green bars are the adaptive culture. The blue bars are non-adaptive. Stock price. Performance grew 900% versus 74%. Net income rose 756% versus 1%. Revenue grew 682% versus 166%. And this goes to your employees, the workforce. It expanded by 282% versus 36%. The importance to managers. For me, this chart right here really shows it. I mentioned you lead by example. Your managers, your leaders, your higher ups, you lead by example. It enhances recruitment. You want your employees, if they know that they have a manager, a boss, a leader that cares, they want to work for them, they want to succeed, they want to be a part of that culture. It enhances communication. Like I mentioned earlier, you got to find ways that work for you to communicate. It builds trust. And like I've mentioned, a good company, you want to build trust. And within, a good culture, that trust will be there. It will come naturally. But who is responsible for creating and shaping your organization's cultures? This is a graph made by Quantum Workplace. 83% said leaders, 75% said managers. I mean, that shows right there, it's very important to who creates, who shapes that culture, and it works from your leaders all the way down to your employees. How organizational culture affects employees. Now for me, I did the recommended 4 topics that we had on the instructions, and this is what I came up with on my own for my 5th slide. Because for me, employees are the most important factor in a company. So how does this organizational culture affect your employees? Job performance and satisfaction. If you're in a good culture, your performance, your satisfaction, it's gonna rise tremendously. Your mindset, you're gonna have a good mindset. You want to be there, you want to strive, that growth, that potential, you want to get to where you want to be. Creativity, that mindset, it goes together. You have a good mindset. You become more creative, and that creativity ties into your brand. Your brand improves your brand image. You have good creativity from your employees, and your brand image, it's boosted. You have a good culture, it all ties in. And last but not least, behavior. If you're in a good culture, how does it affect your employees? By their behavior. You have a good culture, your employees' behavior, it will be positive. They want to be there, they want to succeed. But that is all I've got for you today. I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you.